il y a le triple et IPA. Là, ça va être plus. On avait vidé, je crois. Le problème qu'il y a eu, c'est qu'on avait prévu des stocks pour 2 jours pour les triple et IPA. En un jour, il n'y a plus de stock pour l'IPA. Et je crois qu'on parle de stock pour 2 minutes. Donc,
Mais c'était pas l'IPC, il y avait un triple.
non.
C'est juste IPA ou non?
Parce que justement,
Les triples en soirée, c'est trop risqué.
parce que c'est un problème. Parce que la trip, ça tripe trop. Qu'est-ce que c'est bon?
De quoi? On entend
On nous entend pas.
Hello and welcome to this new episode of Odoo Unplugged. Long time no see. Today I have a bunch of superheroes with me. Another team of superheroes. I think I say something like that at every episode. We will discuss today how our service department implements Odoo at customers and what are the flows, how they manage the communication with them, what are the challenges, all that. So guys, first of all, it's time to introduce yourself. I hope you have prepared a superhero name for this episode. Miguel?
Yes, so I'm Michael, the manager of the expertise team. I'm also a supply chain expert, and basically I take care of that team that is trying to have Odoo specialists to get the most out of Odoo, to use Odoo better, I would say, with best practices. And the idea also is that we try to have business knowledge on top of that to make sure that we can give business pieces of advice to our customers.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm Greg, managing the team, implementing the large project, so the AMC project, and I'm the Odoonosaur at Odoo, and working now for 14 years, approximately, something like this. So I've seen a lot of
So
things.
you're an old guy.
Yeah.
You will be referred to as the
Yeah.
old guy.
The old one.
That will be
The
your
wise one.
superhero name.
The
The wise one. That's very very nice superhero name.
And I'm Tom. I'm the fresh blood of this team, I guess. I'm business analyst and coach here in Quick Start team. So we are in charge of implementing smaller companies, and we are also training the newcomers to have the best methodology possible to implement as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, I suggest we start with that actually, because you both mentioned MMC, Quick Start. What is that? Maybe it's better to start by explaining how your department is organized and what are the big teams, I would say, what they do and why we are organized this way.
Yeah, so the department is organized in different teams. So we have the Quick Start focused mainly on SMEs projects, so we call that smaller one, with a bit less of users. And we have the large project, so the MMC one, so mid-market and corporate, where we are implementing project for, I would say, massive company with a lot more user and a lot more, I would say, custom developments. And so we are involving bigger teams, and we also rely on Michael's teams, the expert, when we need, I can say, some expertise in some area, some field, like the finance, logistics, or something like this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So the experts are really superheroes. Again,
Yes,
that's
we
going
are.
to be the theme for today. So people come to you when they need help, essentially.
Yeah, basically, compared, I would say, to the Quick Start or the MMC team, where they are in direct touch with the customers and they have their direct market, if I may say so. We are more of a support team, meaning that we help both the Quick Start team and the MMC team whenever they have, I would say, complex cases to solve and where they need to have like a deep knowledge of an app to make sure that they use it as much as possible in standard. And whenever we are, I would say, reaching the limits, we try to help them to design the best solution in terms of custom development that they would have in an app.
Mm-hmm.
And we are also trying more and more to do strategic analysis, business analysis with our customers to make sure that they also maybe change their processes, they change the way they operate, because it's not only about the system, we want to help them also to prepare the implementation at some point. So that's why we are having, for instance, now a supply chain audit service or a finance strategic service. So we are trying also to have that preparation step before the implementation, before it actually starts, because sometimes you see that customers try to put a software to solve their problems, but actually they could solve their problem by first changing the way they operate in their company.
Sure. And so then we have the Quick Start.
Yeah, so we are here for smaller projects. Actually, it will be the same as MMC, but really it will take less time and I will say less preparation. Actually, MMC and SME can be considered as generalist, where expert will be with the surgeon, the specialist, that will have this or that specific use case. I will say our main role is really to implement and to help the user use Odoo. That will be maybe the biggest difference with MMC, is that we will make sure that the user will adapt themselves to Odoo, where MMC will be more tailor-based project, I will say.
Because
even if we share the same methodology between both teams, so we push Odoo as standard tool as much as possible, but we know that for those kind of big companies might sometimes require some more advanced configuration or even developments.
Yeah, and the scale is not the same, so you cannot change everything in the way they used to work in the same way, I guess.
Sometimes we have to choose our battle to keep the customer inside the Odoo methodology and the mindset. But yeah, sometimes we have to make some developments and try to limit that as much as possible. That's why we rely on the expertise, but also on the knowledge of our consultants, mastering Odoo from A to Z.
Has it always been split like that, or is it something that came up like, I don't know, several years ago?
No, a couple of years ago, we created the MMC team, really focused on the large project implementation. Before that, we were some consultants specialized in on those kind of projects, but we decided to approach them in a more, I would say, defined or structured way. Reason why we had to create this team to rebuild some tools on top of the, I would say, the quick start methodology and quick start tool to really be able to answer those specific needs in terms of governance, planning, budget, etc. Just to answer those specific needs in terms of project delivery.
So yeah, as often the need came up with time and with expertise, and I guess you saw that you were all, I would say, kind of starting to change the methodology for bigger projects, and so you were like, okay, maybe we need to standardize that and make it like official.
Exactly.
Yeah, there is a whole layer of, I would say, project management that comes with MMC, where we'll have the whole budget discussions, but also the planning, which is actually done by the sales for Quick Start, where we will already have a budget and we will try to stick to it. Because, well, when we speak about money, we will find as many workarounds as possible for them to adapt, where it's not specifically the case for MMC, where, well, if they need something, they most of the time will have it.
It's good you talk about sales, because you give me the perfect transition.
You're welcome.
What
You're
an
welcome.
expert. So
Superhero.
Superhero, sorry. The savior. What is the flow then? Let's say we have a potential customer that comes in. It's like, okay, maybe I would like to use Odoo. So of course there's going to be some salespeople involved at the beginning of the process. What happens then? How is it connected to you? I guess there is a difference maybe between Quick Start and MMC then. How is it happening? Is it something really like the sales does his job and then you come to the project? It's like, okay, how are we going to do all that? Or is there more dialogue since the early beginning of the discussion?
I will begin, I think, because MMC is a specific approach. Here I will say that our sales are kind of involved because they will do a first qualification and a demonstration to the customer in order for them to ease the projection of their company in Odoo. We will receive from the sales a whole documentation about how the business is working, and we will do a first call with the sales when the sales is done in order to understand how they are functioning. And more especially here, the sales is responsible of the budget and what he has specifically sold to the customer. And so if we'll see that, okay, they will need a manufacturing flow, an inventory flow, we will really look at what they specifically need. And when we will receive this project, we will already know what we have to do, which is not specifically the case for MMC.
No, in MMC, we are kind of involved before that, like quite soon in the process, because there is some, I would say, more advanced need or more needs to frame a bit more the project to come back with, I can say, a scope, a budget, a timeline. And so here the sales made the qualification to understand a bit the company context, to understand what are the goals of the company, of the customer, why they are switching from their existing software to Odoo. And then from that, they can ask for help from our consultant to see a bit how we can move forward to answer, like, say, an RFQ, an IFP, an RFI, so a lot of acronyms.
What are those things?
It's a request for quotation, so request for information, depending on the level of information the customer is looking for. Then we might involve some clients. And the idea is really to progress step by step until the implementation, but we are there from the beginning, and our consultants are more or less responsible to define the budget and to define the scope and the timeline for the project, where in Quick Start, the sales is capable to define this kind of budget for a given scope. So here that's a bit the difference. We are involved in the sales qualification or sales process sooner than in the Quick Start.
Doesn't it sometimes? Oh, sorry.
No. Quite often it leads to an ROI
Yeah.
where you have a pre-project that is being sold to the customer with a limited budget, and you try to define on the longer run the feasibility of the project and what's going to be the estimated budget for the project and the potential planning that you can have. So the pre-sales process in MMC, it's quite a lengthy process that can take sometimes months.
Even a
Because
year?
a year, because the customer wants to really make sure that he is making the right decision switching to Odoo.
But I
And we're
guess
in
it's
competition.
always like that when you're a company, a bigger company. You don't switch software
But
like
it's
this.
a
And
big investment for them, yeah.
Sure.
Mhm.
Sure, and that's why the other team is called Quick Start.
Exactly.
Hey, I followed.
But here, to speak about this, we can also see it only with the hours to take to implement and the month. Here we are between 25 hours and I will say 200, 300. It will take 1 month to 6 months. MMC, we are speaking about years most of the time.
I would say months, 2 years, but it's more like hundreds of hours up to thousands of hours.
Can it not happen then, since you don't have this process of really like discussing for a long time with the customer what they need, that something is sold to the customer that at the end you're like, how are we going to do that? So how do you handle this kind of situation? How often does it happen? I guess as few as
yeah.
possible, but
Yeah, it can happen. I had already had it like 3 times. Well, actually, you see it most of the time during the kickoff. So the first call that we, the business analyst, will do with the customer, we will requalify everything to be sure that we have understood every flows. And it happened that if you have already had some specific use cases for 2 specific industries, that you will know that there will be big developments needed, or that the sales didn't see a big gap in their analysis. And the best thing is to withdraw at this moment and to take a time to discuss with the customer and the sales that we will need to do a better analysis. We already had projects that went from a few hours to like a large quick start. It's all about keeping the customer up to date and being really transparent about the process. But yeah, it happens, and but we try to avoid it as hard as possible.
Sure.
Yeah.
I guess in a perfect world, the sales always know perfectly everything, analyze everything perfectly, and you get the full explanation right away, and everything goes super smoothly. I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's.
But sometimes so that it's not always the I would say the responsibility of the sales, because sometimes the customer does not say anything because they might take things as granted, or as a day-to-day job they forget to tell us exactly how they work, and so sometimes it leads to issue even in MMC. Sometimes they say, okay, everyone works like this, so I don't need to say it.
Yeah, sure, and I think as a developer, it's something I really understand, because it's really like, when you need people to explain you something in whatever process they're following or something they want to achieve, they will skip steps because they don't have the same vision as the guy needing to do it in practice. And it's the same for you, I guess, because everything needs to fit into Odoo, maybe with customizations, but it needs to fit into Odoo at some point. So you have like you're splitting the task and be like, okay, this is going to be handled with that, but you need to see it work in practice and to visualize that beforehand. And most people don't do that because that's just not something they have to do. And of course, they forget things then. So how would you say then you managed to trigger the discussion to make sure that everything was understood properly? How do you handle this
So here what we do, we try to ask the customer to show us how they work. So show me how you book an invoice. Show me how you create a sales order, how you work in inventory. So we can directly see that, okay, I take the box, I scan it, I have this hardware, I have some issue with the Wi-Fi, so I need to go there to scan it because otherwise it's not connected.
You stop them in the middle if there's something you don't understand, like Anthony would do. You're like, what is that?
Exactly. That's what we try to do, because by doing that, we see exactly all the steps and all the things they have to gather in the system to make something work, and so it's our job to capture that and see all those small details that they might not explain or already explain in some written documents or a video they made or something like this.
So it can be quite challenging because you also have to get into the mindset of the old software that they're
Yeah.
using, if there is a software.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I guess there is one.
At least Excel.
They don't do it on paper. You know. You
Sometimes
never got
yes,
someone who
sometimes
was
they
doing
do,
everything
yeah.
on paper. Yeah,
Yeah,
even
it
for
happens.
MMC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not everything.
But for some processes,
for
it
some
happens,
processes.
yeah.
Wow.
They wrote they have a software, they print on paper, they write everything on paper, they give it back to someone else who have to re-encode the data into the
It's still quite common if
Paper
you
has no bugs.
Yeah.
It is quite
Hopefully,
flexible.
yeah.
There is
Wow.
also here for another way to see this is thanks to the industries that we are developing for the moment.
Mhm.
We
Could you
have
quickly explain what it is for people not
yeah,
exactly? seeing?
so those are specific models for specific sectors of companies, real estate. I only have real estate in my mind, but yeah,
NGOs,
yeah,
things like that,
specific
yeah.
to really have like a custom-based database already created. And in order to make those modules, we have specific business analysts that has worked a lot with this or that specific sector, and that helps with this topic. I had the case, for example, with the pharmaceutical sector, or where two sales already came to me to ask questions about this sector because they had two specific customers that were using this, and it helps us identify at the beginning of the process specific developments that are really needed for this specific sector. But so here I will say that it's kind of new, this industry process, but the more we will get into it, the easier it will be to have really to tackle all the problems that a specific sector can have, and then to be sure that we qualify it correctly at the beginning.
Yeah, because of course, I guess depending on the sector, you will not get worried about the same things, and there will be something. The pharmaceutical industry is actually a good
Yeah,
example because I think
yeah.
a bunch of things are very critical when you're working in that field. And if you sell shoes, I don't know, probably not the same ones. Right?
Exactly, and more especially here when I started with my first project, they were really convinced that manufacturing sectors and pharmaceutical manufacturing sectors were the same things, and so they didn't explain a lot of things. It was a big struggle because we were with a lot of developments, but now it's perfect and it's good, and now we are using this experience to continue with other sectors.
Could you give a bunch of examples of specific needs to this industry, really, so that people maybe visualize it better?
Sure. We will speak, for example, with medical devices. Normally, when you have a product, whatever it is, you will have a serial number on it. Here, you will need a UDI, which is a specific serial number for medical devices, where you will have a sequence, the date number, or the date of fabrications, and UDI code of the product. It will be not one line, but on 3 different lines, and those are real legally mandatory when you are speaking about this specific topic.
Yeah, probably because you need additional tracking of it.
Exactly.
And, it's just more precise.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would say then part of your job is reassuring the customer after the sales. Actually, we could phrase it this way, right? And that'd be okay, this is gonna really happen, and making sure that it, of course, is the truth. So you're like a second level of sales, right?
Yeah.
You were the one to say that, but I'm stealing your sentence.
It's okay. It's okay.
So what happens then? So the sale is done. You got the first contact with the customers. How does it go from there?
So here, during implementation, we still need to make sure that the client is still in line with Odoo, and that we will do the project and it will go live at some point. So here, it's really important to keep that in mind, to prove and to reassure the client, because changing from one software to another is always risky, even more for, I would say, LMC project, because here they invest a lot of money, a lot of time inside the project. So it's important to show them that we know what we are doing, that Odoo will answer the need, and that they will be able to operate at least the same way than before, and even more, of course, with Odoo to gain some efficiency or some added features, or to get rid of the paper as much as possible.
More than risky, it's also scary, actually, because they cannot know for sure until it's done that it's going to work. So, of course, you need a lot of dialogue then. Mhm.
And we also try in project to also expand the scope, because sometimes when we discuss with the client, we might see some area where Odoo can bring a lot of added value.
Yeah.
And so it's important for us to keep that also in mind and to keep an eye on those elements to provide the client with extra features or extra apps that they might not even think to put inside Odoo because they don't know that it exists in Odoo, like in standard, like the chatter, like for example some other some apps like the marketing app, the website, the e-commerce. And so if we see that there is a room for improvement as a, I would say, a low cost, then we'll push it or even plan it maybe for later, but at least we put that in mind of the customer. And so that's why here we have this sense of sales approach in the project, because you try to impact more the client with Odoo.
Plus, with the new pricing, adding new
Yeah.
apps doesn't make a difference, right?
It's a game changer.
Yeah.
It's a really a game changer because some apps, as Greg says, that weren't like really used in the past, that were considered small ones like HR, marketing, etc., are actually no more used because it's part of the full scope of Odoo.
Maybe we should explain what the change of pricing was, so that everyone is on board
Yeah.
again.
So basically, after before you were paying for
So when
each-
is before?
2 years
2 years
ago.
ago, yeah.
2 years ago.
16.
Yeah,
Time
it's a good
flies.
question. But I think indeed it was 2 years ago, and before that you were paying per apps that you were adding on your subscription
And per user.
and per user, whereas now it's only per user. But with one user, you are good to use all the apps of the Odoo scope, which is really great, especially for SMEs, because it's not that expensive for them to actually add an extra app on the scope, and it's really a game changer, especially I think for SMEs.
And so yeah, as you were saying, so all the less used apps or less necessary apps that would have been an additional cost in the past are now for free, and so people can more easily use them. But so you get the integration that goes with it, and I think this is this can be a game changer for a lot of people, because it's like, wow, Odoo is powerful.
Yeah, more especially when you have to find workarounds. It's really helpful to have everything. For example, marketing automation, where you can use action servers, or a lot of different stuffs. I will say that for SMEs, we are also advising a lot about the process of the customers, because most of them have never worked in companies unless their own company. So it's really important for us to be able to show how powerful the whole software is, but more especially how we can help them improve their current process by finding the best solutions, which was really a struggle before when you didn't have everything.
Yeah, because indeed, for SMEs, indeed in particular, because I guess MMCs normally are above that, but who knows, maybe not sometimes.
Sometimes you'd be surprised.
Yeah, all the guys doing everything in paper. But you have, it's one guy starting the thing a few years ago. He was doing everything in his own place, and there's in this kind of situations there is also always some messy side to it, I guess. I'm not going to give names, but I worked as a student for a company, and I saw a few things. I'm like, wow. But it's always been like that. We've always done like that, and well, it works like this. It's not the right time to change anything. And so essentially, with that, you end up with traditions that makes absolutely no sense, that are super manual. But we've always done like that, and it kind of works. And it's good to have, I guess, someone to challenge that at some point. And indeed, if the tool is like literally offering you to do it for you much more efficiently, it's better for everyone at the end, but you need to teach them that.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the biggest part of the consultant is to challenge. We have worked with a lot of companies. We know what are the best processes, and we always have done it this way is never a good answer. So we try to challenge them as hard as possible, because we are convinced that it is the good solution, and if they think their way is better, they have to convince us. It's a dialogue, of course, because at the end they are using it.
Of course.
But yeah, the idea is really to work together and to challenge each other.
So you take like examples in other companies that you had to work with, and you explain to them, you're like, okay, for them, they're selling this, that, it's a bit what you do. So for them, they did that, and it worked much better, and this kind of thing. So the example, I guess, has a lot of power in this kind of situation.
Exactly, yeah.
And we also try to understand the need, the business need behind the process or the tool they are using, to really understand why they are trying to do it like this, and why another way to really be able to answer that need, and so to understand a bit the why they're doing it. And here we come with the how they're gonna do it.
Yeah.
If they are there and they want to change from one software to another, so they have to leave some room for adaptation and for some change. And that's why here we say, okay, we'll take care of the how you're gonna work or you're gonna do it. Explain me why you do that this way, what you're trying to achieve, and we will make it work.
I also want to bond on this. I think that the project that works the best are the projects where customers can really well explain their needs. They're like really detailed needs. Okay, they know exactly what they want. Most of the time, when we have a need that is a little bit blurry, the solution will also be a little bit blurry, and we'll have a lot of back and forth to find the good solution. So yeah, best advice: qualify all your needs. Be sure about this, because we will have to work on it after it.
Would you say that it's maybe a bit more difficult to have something like really qualified like this and very structured right away with SMEs than with MMC, because MMC maybe are a bit more used to this kind of structured process?
I would say some companies are, but some are
Some
not,
are not,
even
yeah.
if they are big companies, because big companies mean also a lot of people to bring around the table to understand a bit how they work. Sometimes they work in silos, so every department knows how they work, but no one has really a big view on how the entire company is working. Or maybe I would say the big chief, the CEO,
But then
but
maybe
he has
has
no
a too
time to
simple
explain
view
that.
of it
Yeah.
also.
And so we have to bring a lot of people around the table, and they might not agree all together and each other to really align on the way they want to work. And so sometimes it's another challenge, because they might be perceived as structured, but they are sometimes just structured per department,
Yeah.
but not all the time globally. And it's sometimes hard to get all the information all together to design a bit the flow from A to Z.
Plus,
But sometimes the CEO also doesn't, or I would say the C-level team doesn't have like a really good view on the operations part and on the field part, and maybe they will design a solution that is too high level, and in the end when you reach the go live, you realize that you are not taking into account enough the needs of the people in the company and to cover actually their day-to-day operations. And sometimes that's, I think, the difficult part also in MMC is that sometimes you can get a very high-level view, but you are not really on the field with the employees.
True, and it's understandable because the structure is complex, and so the guy who's responsible of like multiple things has to work with abstractions and cannot go into the details of everything, otherwise it never works actually. But the more hierarchy you get, then the more difficult it gets to discuss with those people, because you will not get the practical details. How do you circumvent that then?
But for
You
instance,
have to tell them somehow.
Yeah, you have to tell
Dude,
them.
I'm not sure you understand everything in your business. Maybe not like that.
no, for sure. But I think when you have a bit of experience, you get to understand at some point that the person giving you the information sometimes don't really realize what is happening on the field. And when we do, for instance, supply chain implementations, as we were saying before, it's good to go on site to see how they operate, how they use the current software, what are their difficult parts, because you get a sense also of what it means to be on the field, and you can then better challenge your counterpart on the project level. So I think if we can also ourselves go close to the end users and to the employees, it helps us then give a better challenge to the customer. I recently had the case with a customer telling me, no, it works like this in the software currently, and I told him, yes, but when I was on site at your place, I actually saw something different. So are you really sure that it's like that? So he had to check with the person. He told me, yes, you're right. Actually, they work like that. So it's a matter of being as close as possible to the user and the end users.
And there's also here, because when you are working with C-levels, they have seen what the software was capable of, and so they want to implement that and that and that, and it will never reflect what you have in reality. For example, if we are speaking about supply chain, is to create location, sub-location, sub-sub-location to be sure that everything is well stored in Odoo. But when you are looking at how they will need to use it, maybe this level of precision is not that good,
It's
because
too much.
it's too much.
Yeah.
So you will always have to adapt what they want and how they work.
And Greg was talking about we are always looking for the why, for the objectives, the end goal of what they are doing. But if you ask indeed the warehouse manager, for instance, you will have like reporting objectives, seeing more information, more data. But the more data you put and the more data you try to collect through the software, the more difficult it will be for the end user. So that's always this kind of, I would say, tension between the two that you need to manage as well.
And it's time for a little break now. So we will be back in a few minutes, and we will go back to that and get more into the details. See you then. And we are back. They're still there. No one left. It's fine. First thing, very good. Okay, so we were talking about the start of the implementation really, and the discussion with the customer to understand their needs, their business. And so you were mentioning that you had to go see how basically every level in the company was working before moving to Odoo to make sure that you got a complete view of the situation. Do you also need to involve, I guess, a bunch of those users in the discussions or in the, I guess, successive meetings that you could have about what you decided to do, how you made them, and to show them, okay, is it all right for you, and to confirm things with them?
Yeah. Here, when we are doing ROI analysis, so where we try to understand and discover how the company is working, we try to work with the end user as well. So here we work with, I could say, a salesperson, with the accountant, with someone in the warehouse to really understand and see how they're working. We are not focused on only the management level, because they will mostly focus, I would say, on reporting, KPIs and numbers, and have maybe some theoretical process they want to put in place, where we want that the end user is, I would say, the focus point of our project, because we think that the project should be around the end user, because if they want to use the tool and if they feed the tool with data, then all the reporting will be like some kind of details, because we'll be able to do it quite easily in Odoo with all the features we have.
Plus the efficiency will go through them first before going through the reporting. If everything takes 2 times the time it could take at the end user level, you have problems, I guess.
and Odoo is designed for the end user. That's always what we try to do. If you ask the product owners, Fabien, that's the target that we have. We want to make them more efficient, to simplify their life. So if we were to implement it without having the end user in mind, that would be, I would say, going against also the philosophy of Odoo, in my opinion.
But it's good to say, it's interesting to see that the culture also has an impact on the way we manage this kind of projects. So, okay, and so then what happens? So are you doing like it's step by step, and you're like implementing a bunch of features on some kind of demo database, and then showing, okay, is it okay, and like ping pong with the customer like that? Or is it more like we try to have something that is like the minimal viable thing, we show that, but not step by step. It's really one big thing in one go, and then X month later, I don't know, another one, and we add multiple features at the same time in it. How does it work exactly? Maybe it's different between Quick Start and MMC?
Well, yes. Here, if we have, for example, a 50 or 100 hour pack, we will already know what will be the different phases or different flow that we'll have, and we will first do a whole kickoff. We will analyze every needs of every different departments, and if needed, we will take this end user of this specific sector, and then you will try to analyze and find solution for everything. This will be validated by the customer, and then it will be a discussion to know which phase we will start with, and we do a first and a second deployment on the phase. Let's speak really concretely. We will speak about inventory. Let's continue with inventory, where we'll have a first phase of inventory where we'll speak about, well, the reception, the stock, and the deliveries, and all the things that will not block the flow will be done on a second deployment in order to implement all the nice to help, for example, the barcodes or valuations and things like this. So when we are in a phase, the idea is really to step by step configure it, train the users, and then go live. And so they will use it on a daily basis. And when they are using it on a daily basis, we will do either a second deployment or we will work on a new phase, depending on the
so we really
priorities.
deploy it by steps like that. So
Always.
it's really on the actual database that you will add things afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess it can be better for spotting maybe things that would not be completely working or potential problems or things that got misunderstood than
and
earlier in the process.
And in the Odoo methodology, we try not to go for like big bang go lives, meaning that we put all the applications at the same time. We really try to, if possible, slice the phases and have a go live per app usually, or per set of apps if it's possible, because we know that it's less risky, and also the users get to use the software for real, and then the feedback and the analysis phases that you'll have afterwards are way more efficient because they know how Odoo operates and it goes faster afterwards.
So you also need to plan the fact that there will be a period of time overlapping with the old software and how they will need to make that work, because of course there will be no integration between the new one and the old one.
And the decision between the go live and the phasing, I mean between a big bang and phasing it into different apps, is really related also to the connections that they currently have in their software. If they come from already integrated software, it's much more difficult to convince them
for 6 months. It will not be
let's
like
not
that.
go for a big bang. Or if you have big connections between some apps, like if you do Anglo-Saxon accounting, usually you want to connect inventory with accounting, with the stock. So sometimes you have like constraints that you cannot avoid, but if it's possible to phase it per apps or per set of apps, then it's the best solution because you decrease the risk going live.
That is really something we push inside the project, and we also have the solution to have some temporary integration to be able to make Odoo work in the IT landscape that the company might have, because in MMC what we see is that they already have sometimes a bunch of softwares working together, and we come and replace maybe one brick of this IT landscape, and then we remove another one in the phase 2, etc. And so we try to go in that way, and having the solution to temporarily integrate Odoo with another software that we know Odoo will replace maybe in 6 months or a year, just because it's more efficient to do it in this way rather than having to double encode some data. Or if we feel that there is no real need or added value to do that, then we say, okay, let's do some double encoding, or let's leave like this for this short amount of time, and we try to keep it as short as possible. But we know that for those kind of projects, it can last for months or years.
So just to get into the concrete details, it could be that the customer, so I guess on bigger projects it must happen often, the customer will pay for customization, so to have this integration, to have something that connects Odoo to the old software for, let's say they start using accounting, because come on, and they don't want to have the stock right away, so they do the integration to have the link between the accounting and the stock in the old software, and eventually they will move the stock into Odoo, but it might be in like 1 year, 2 years, I don't know.
So I would say a one-shot investment they have to make, and so after X months, we just remove this integration and we put it to trash because they don't use it anymore. But it helps us to phase the project and decrease the risk and fasten the go live, because we really want to have the go live happen as soon as possible, so the user can use Odoo. And what we see is that also the development request decrease, and we can drop also some requests that they might feel must have, that we challenge, that would be nice to have, and we try to put it in a phase 2 or a later phase, and we try to drop that when they try to use, because they can learn how Odoo is working, they find workaround by themselves, so they see room of improvement, and they see, okay, I don't need to do this, and this, because Odoo can answer this need in another way.
Plus, indeed, the fact you phase it like that, you will have users, when you move to the next phase, you will have some users that were using Odoo, that have gotten some experience with it, and that might find solutions or help finding solutions by themselves without you needing to be the one being like, no, but you need to do that, and yeah, essentially it would avoid, I think, a lot of mess.
And this can also help us to convince that Odoo is a useful tool, that it can work in the company. If we put the finance team with the accounting live on Odoo, they can spread the word inside the company, and talking to the stock, the warehouse people, so okay, look, we are using Odoo, we are working with Odoo, it really works. So
true, because there is a bit of politics involved actually, because indeed, if everyone in the company is convinced that Odoo sucks and that it's really like, why are we moving to that thing, it's going to be, I guess, more difficult to make them use it properly, and
we sometimes
to just
face
explain that.
those kind of people in project, and it's really a challenge and an issue to tackle as soon as possible, to understand why people are sometimes against the Odoo project, and try to understand the reason behind this frustration, or be against the tool, and to work with those people to address those topics and make them switch and go for the project. Otherwise, they will make everything possible to crash the project at some point.
It's a big part of a consultant's job is to listen, actually, just to listen to the people, to the needs. When you have someone that doesn't want to use, there's always a reason behind. It's rarely the case that it is, oh, I don't want because I don't want. It's I don't want because I cannot use it, or because this or that is not the way I was using it before. And it's really about, well, taking the time to explain it correctly and to be sure that he is involved, that he feels that he matters in the process, because at the end he is the end user and he will use it.
So there is some trust to build with, I would say, every level of users, because of course I guess the one deciding what they will pay for that is also one that you need some trust to have some trust with. How do you manage that? Because especially for MMC actually, because in those cases they will often pay for customization, I guess, so specific development for them, even if it's just for integration, for example, with all the stuff as we were explaining. What would be like the keys in having this trust? Because frankly, purely on paper, you could be like, you would understand that those guys are a bit, let's be careful with those Odoo guys, because essentially they want my money and they will do everything in their power to get it. And I guess some companies would actually work like that. So it's not our spirit, right?
No.
Otherwise I quit, huh?
No, the idea is really to build, I would say, some relationship with the client. So with the management, but also with the end user, so the people who are gonna use Odoo, to really understand how they feel and how they react to the project. Are they aware that we are there, I would say, to help them, and not there to help the management to track what they're doing, so to do some micromanagement or something like this. So here we try to be transparent, to be, I would say, honest, to say, okay, let's move. We try to listen to those guys, understand a bit how they feel and how they perceive the Odoo implementation. And again, to try to reassure them that it's going to work, and we listen to their frustration, their pain points, and we try to solve them as much as possible.
Here, it's also the fact that we business analysts, we have no commissions. If we have one KPI, is that the project is well done. It's really, well, it's what we were discussing during the break, is that it is really important actually to have this honesty, this transparency, and being able to build the best solution, because, well, we have no commission at all. If we advise something, it's because we think it's the best way to approach this project, this implementation.
I guess it does a lot, because trying to convince someone about something, or selling, if I might say so, something to someone, if that person knows that you're not getting anything out of it, any additional money out of it, and you're just doing that because, well, you want the job to be done properly, and essentially you want to help, that makes a lot of big difference, I guess.
Our focus is to implement and deploy project on time and on budget. So we try really to stick to the initial budget. Of course, sometimes there might have some changes, but it's not, I would say, there is no impact on us on that, so we try to avoid that, and so the client can have something working within the agreed budget.
And I guess when you see something coming, you try to discuss it as early as possible, and you're like, you don't wait for it to be, okay, so it will be 10,000 euros more, please.
No, we try to reach to raise the flag if something is shifting in one direction or the other, so the client can also decide if they want to go in that direction or not. It's really important to warn the client that this decision might delay the go live, or might cost a lot more than what has been expected in the beginning. So the client can really decide, and we can work together to find a workaround or another solution that will be faster to implement, I would say cheaper in terms of budget. So it's really important that we have this kind of transparency with the client. So we give him, I can say, all the information we have as soon as we have it. We don't put we don't sweep anything under the carpet.
And I think also, as the services at Odoo, we try actually. Our main goal is actually to increase our customer base, to increase the number of users that are using Odoo. We want to have good references in the Odoo ecosystem, but our end goal is not like selling more services. We just want people to be as quickly as possible onboarded onto their Odoo database. And that's it. And we also try to show to the market kind of that Odoo is not is quite cheap when you think about it compared to other solutions. And we want the services also to be not that expensive for our customers. We want to show that there is a an alternative direction for the implementation where it doesn't take that much time to actually implement the software. So we are also trying to align what we do in the services with what Odoo is and stands on the ERP market, if you think about it.
And I think it's also one of the biggest companies' mindset of the company culture is that we try to help as hard as possible to use it and the best way, I want to say. So it's something that actually I'm always impressed when I see the expert MMC or SMEs is that most of the people here are really passionate about what they are doing and they really want to help in the best way possible. We can really see it like a game of optimizations, and we have a lot of different weapons, and we just have to find the best way for the customer to use them in order to, do their daily lives. It can be kind of fun actually to do to optimize things.
Well, I agree, and I think it's really nice, and it's one of the things I enjoy the most in this company, to be honest. The fact that we are so focused on the quality of what we're doing, because it's the same in R&D. We want to have it working, and so it's the same for you. It's exactly what you're describing. So it's nice to see that it's like homogeneous on the whole company. Maybe to move on a little bit on the different things that can happen when you do a deployment. I guess one of the biggest, if not the biggest, thing to handle. So once you have handled the way you would do it, once you have developed the customizations, is the data, because you need somehow to re-import into Odoo. I guess a lot of the things that were there in the past in the previous software or in paper, but importing from paper might be a bit.
It's a tricky topic.
Tricky topic, yeah. So how does it work? What are you would say the limits that you would have for that? Are there some trade-offs to be done?
Yeah, it's an important topic that we have to tackle during the implementation, because depending on the case, we sometimes have companies that have a software existing for 10, 15 years, containing a lot of data. And also the mindset of the client sometimes say, okay, I want to take all my data and bring it to the new software, where we say that it's not useful. Let's try to stick it, to keep it at a minimal level, because it will take time, it will take, therefore, money. And also, you will also bring all the bad data from the old system to the new one.
Yeah, because that is something that people might not think about, but I have a few things to say about that. Because the thing is,
We all think that you're angry.
Yeah, yeah. I saw things. Okay. The thing is, when you use a software, any software, and it can be Odoo as well. With time, with the changes of versions, with the different bugs that you could have in it, because this happens as well, and with weird stuff that some of your users might do, you will end up with data that will be working, but actually they only seem to be working, and it's by chance. And so, of course, since the data model are very different from one software to the other, when you import this data as it was into the new software, you could break a lot of things just because it was not thought in the same way, and the data before they were a bit wrong, but not wrong enough for you to see them, but now they are very, very wrong. And so that's why you can have these kind of problems.
Exactly. So you see, that's why here we really try to challenge the client. So, okay, let's import what really matters and what will bring value to the new system. Let's say, for example, what we're going to import, maybe the open sales order, because they still have something to fulfill, like a delivery to make, some invoice to generate. But importing the invoice from 10 years ago, we try to see what's the point of having them. If it's just in case someone is asking me the invoice, we just say, okay, let's try to either keep the solution on the side in read-only mode, so if you need, you can check and take this old invoice, or if you have it on paper, then just bring it back, or having to store it some way, just to avoid to bring, I would say, some crap inside Odoo, and to keep the system, I would say, up to date and with the best data quality.
And yeah, for the accounting, which I think is like the biggest example indeed, because you have a lot of data in that and a history that goes. But it's data you still need to keep kind of, or at least you need to keep the balances of your accounts. Otherwise, of course, your accounting is just completely broken. But you can just re-import the balances of those accounts.
That's what we're trying to do, is to import the opening balance. And like just importing the summary to avoid maybe some difference in terms of computation, to avoid some difference in terms of, let's say, VAT or 1 cent or 10 cent differences somewhere. So we try to import what really matters, to restart from scratch or from something that you can work on and continue to build.
And I think it's really important to see this step as an opportunity to clean or to rebuild what they were using. When you're speaking about accounting or contacts or products, most of the time, more especially in SMEs, I guess, they have a lot of users or products that are not used, or accounts or analytic accounts that they used twice and that's it. And taking the time to just say, okay, what is the structure that you want to put inside? Because let's take 1 week or 2 weeks right now to be sure that it is the best way to use them. And it's part of our job to really like advise onto cleaning and onto changes to make it easier then.
But it's also so of course it's making things easier for the customer at the end of the day, and it's kind of an investment, because of course the more data and weird stuff you import without questioning anything, the more weird cases you will have in the future, and so the more support tickets, bugs, issues for the customer. So at the end of the day, it's better for everyone to just diminish as much as possible the things you really need, and make sure you only take what you really need and what is important.
But you must know the FAQ file in France,
Yeah.
where you can actually export your data, your accounting data in a structured way, and you can actually re-import it into Odoo, because we have a feature that allows us to get the accounting data. But usually we advise against the use of the FAQ file, because it means that it will re-import all the customers, all the products, all the accounts, and all the entries from the old software. And sometimes the match is not perfect with what we have in Odoo, and you always have in any way to enrich the customers or to clean them, etc. So it's more of a mess to actually try to re-import everything from the old software, rather than just starting from a clean slate, actually.
Or importing just the subset that is like the most recent, as you were saying.
And something that is also not always seen is that for some companies, they think, okay, we'll just use a new software. But on our side, it's more, okay, let's revamp, rebuild, rethink how the company is working to make it the best fit. So it takes time and energy on their side to make this happen also.
But on the opposite, you also try to not block the project or to change too much, to say, okay, we will not import or to clean too much data, otherwise we're going to lose like a lot of time, because we also have the capabilities inside Odoo to clean the data after the import. What we try to do is to clean all the garbage we can find in the data, like all the client label do not use, or something like this, but keep the rest and keep the cleaning process, I would say, going on with the life of the project and with the life of the tool. Otherwise, we just
get stuck trying to have
never
the perfect thing that we never reach and actually never deliver anything.
Exactly, and postpone the go live, and then we enter like the vicious circle where if we postpone the go live once, we can do it in another time, then a third time.
We have some perfectionist customers that try to clean the data as much as possible, and then they procrastinate, and we never go live.
I had the case of a customer that just wanted, everything was finished, we had to do the go live, but there were no contacts, because they were still cleaning for 3 months, their 100 contacts. And you were like, okay, put it inside, but it's okay, we will use it, but they really didn't want to, because it was not perfect. And so it's a question of like cursor to be able to say, okay, you have to clean, you have to revamp, but we have to be efficient too.
It's funny because we have the same in development. It's something you learn at the beginning. At some point, you have to realize that, okay, maybe you could have rewritten the thing you just spent 2 weeks to write slightly differently, but you only realize it at the end. But hey, it's working, and if you restart it now, you will never make it work. So yeah, you have to deliver at some point, sure. We are slowly reaching the end of the episode, so we just, I guess, do one last point as the conclusion, because so we mentioned all that. So you mentioned that, of course, the users, you needed to explain them a lot of things, but you also need to train them on Odoo, right? How does it work? Because you don't expect them to discover it all by themselves and it's working, bye-bye, I guess.
So here we try to be, I would say, creative in the way we can train people, because we try to be, I would say, efficient. So even the MC approach, we have the trainer approach. So we train one person in a given department, and his responsibility will be to train the different end users. So you'll be the point of contact for for the end user of this department, for questions, for training, and to make sure that they know how Odoo is working. But sometimes this approach does not work because they don't find the right person. Maybe the guy is not comfortable with giving trainings or doesn't have the time to build the right tools. So what we try to do is to find the best way to answer this need, and we create videos, we create written documents, we even try to put some tools. So because we have some tool or guiding tools inside Odoo, we try to use that as well in projects. So we try to be creative to make people know how Odoo is working and how I would say the custom Odoo we build for them is working. And so for every project, every task, even if the task is about configuration, we try to record a small video to really show, okay, this is how this configuration is working, and that's the result.
So the videos are made like case by case,
Yeah.
project by project.
Yeah.
So they're specific to their
Yeah.
use case every time.
We also send, I would say, the standard videos, so people knows how standard Odoo is working, so they get familiar also with the way Odoo is working, what feature they can expect, how to work with the chatter, how they log in, the welcome screen with all the applications,
So
etc.
maybe to discover some
Yeah.
features they don't need now,
Yeah.
but they might
Yeah.
use in the future.
To bring awareness to the client as well, and so we know that we will not have to record some video on top of that because this material is already existing. Just need to focus and to bring new videos on specific aspects, even if it's I would say configuration, so on standard features, but adapted to their case, and we use their vocabulary, their words, so they can see and project themselves into the into the
Yeah, I
system.
think it's clear this way because companies, they have their own language. We're the same, and frankly, the number of acronyms you gave today, and they have their way of seeing their business, their workflow, and of course we have a way of calling all that as well, but it's probably not the same. And asking them to translate everything every time they get an explanation is making the thing a bit more complicated for them. And so, indeed, having something explained to them with their words is probably making the thing more, easier to understand.
Yeah, because sometimes what we receive as feedback is that we are, I would say, too technical in the way that we are, I would say, Odoo-centric, and we speak in terms of like sales order, on PO, on bills, invoices, or something like that, or stock picking, something like this, and we try to adapt our wording to the client, and that's also one of the reasons why we do not write, I would say, a user guide, because we are not familiar with all their vocabulary, the terminology they use, and they know better, so that's why we also try to delegate that to the client to really write maybe some user guide, some user manual, because they know the people they work with, they know all the process, the real life inside the company better than us, of course.
And I guess it also might avoid sometimes getting into explanations that are absolutely useless for the use case, but that you need to give if you want to be generic, like multi-company branches, stuff like that. I guess a lot of companies don't need that. Quick Start, I'm not sure a lot of them use branches.
I think it can.
Some do. Oh, impressive. But so indeed, for those not needing those features, saying, but for branches it's a bit different, so you need to do that. And adding this kind of sentence at the end every time you explain something or you share something is just making the thing more complex, and it's useless for them.
Yeah.
And with train the trainer approach, the idea is that we want to have like a first line of support, people that are very skilled about Odoo in the company, so that they get autonomous at some point. We don't want them to rely only on us for the use of the software. So it's also a bit, I think, the idea of train the trainer.
We try always to learn them how to fish than to give them a fish, actually. And for this, we also try to structurize the whole documentation when we train a user. It's not only about here's a video in a mail. It's try to, for example, use the Knowledge app, where we will structurize all the different flows with videos, and so they can always look back to this and be the ambassador of the company with Odoo.
Okay, so again, the word is this has to work for real.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and that will be, I guess, the final word for today, because sadly we've reached the end of the episode, but you guys can all come back if you want. Thank you for all these explanations. I think we gave a pretty complete view of the matter. I hope the audience liked it. If you did, please come back. And so, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you to the
Thank you, Olivier.
viewers, and see you in the next episode.
Yeah.
See you.
Cheers.
See you.